You're listening to Convenience Matters, brought to you by NACS. We'll talk about what we see at stores and what the future may hold for our industry.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Convenience Matters. My name is Chris Blasinsky with NACS.
And I'm Rose Johnson, also with NACS.
And today we have a very special guest. This is a man who I met, I think when Twitter began, when there was like 11 people on Twitter. We found this guy called Gas Station Gourmet, and he was doing really neat stuff. He was going into gas stations and in small towns and finding, really interesting foods and unique finds. And, it's kind of similar to something we were doing with Ideas to Go. So I was like, we need to talk to this guy. I like what he's up to. I like what he's doing. So the rest is kind of history. And Al, you've been Al Hebert, who is the Gas Station Gourmet, among many things. He also is a contributing writer for NACS Magazine and does a column called Gas Station Gourmet and has for, probably more than a decade now.
Yes. I started in 2011.
Wow. So welcome, Al.
Well,
we're very happy to have you here.
So excited to be here. I love NACS. I love everything about NACS. I'm your biggest fan.
Oh, well, we're your fan too.
Oh, thank you.
Well, welcome, Al. I also joined NACS in 2011,
Oh, wow.
So we have that in common.
Super.
And Rose still works on NACS Magazine. Of course, I moved on from that side of things, but
yeah. Well, I'm so excited to be here. I love NACS, and I'm so humbled and grateful to be a small part of the NACS family.
So Al, first thing I want to share, because of course, like we already established that we know you, but people in the audience may not know you. So they're going to by the end of this podcast for sure. And one of the things that I just wanted you to kind of speak to is, how did you start with Gas Station Gourmet? What was going through your head where it's like, I'm going to go to gas stations and just start eating great food and make a name for myself and a brand out of it?
Chrissy, that's a great question, because like everything in my life, wife, children, jobs, it was a complete accident. And by trade, I'm a healthcare writer and reporter, and I was an independent producer doing medical projects for television. And most of our projects were in Texas. And my photog and I stopped in a gas station one day, and we walked inside, and it smelled like your grandmother's kitchen on a Sunday afternoon. It was unbelievable. And we looked at each other and said, are they cooking in this place? And so we took a stroll around, and sure enough, there were two chubby ladies, and they're the best cooks in the world. I made my wife gain 30 pounds so she could cook better. And I gained 50 pounds so I could cook better. And they're cooking behind this counter, and they had roast and rice and gravy and green beans and rolls. And we had this wonderful meal. And I told my photog, I said, if there's 2 or 3 more places like this in America, we'll shoot a package, and we're going to get free lunch. You see, in TV, Rose and Chrissy, what we really want is free lunch. And I thought the Gas Station Gourmet was going to get us a few free lunches. We were on the road all the time. I said, this will be great. And we came up with the name right there, Gas Station Gourmet. And come to find out, much to my pleasant surprise, there were people cooking all over. And, this thing just kind of grew. And I was finding not just, things on roller grills, but I was finding amazing home cooked meals in these gas stations. And it just kind of took over. I went from, I don't know if I want to do healthcare anymore, and started trying to focus a little more on gas station food, got back into broadcast TV, and but continued to do this. And that's how it started. It was just a fluke, walking into a gas station and you smell the home cooking. And we've been doing it ever since.
Yeah. So Al, I know that in general, you're pretty involved in your community, and kind of a local celebrity based on the things that I see. So how has that worked in your favor as far as bringing to life what these gas stations have to offer?
Well, I'm pretty lucky. I always tell my I have my photog at the station, different guy. We have the best job in broadcast TV. Corporate never says don't do this or don't do that. So consequently, I get to milk goats, make elf shoes, squeeze chickens, and that's a long story, squeezing the chickens. And when I can, I always try to go to a gas station. In the last few weeks, I've been to two, I think, and do food. We do a cooking segment every Friday. And when I can, I like to go to gas stations. There's one, it's a C-store that I've written about for NACS Magazine. And it's called the Handy Stop Market and Cafe. And they do very healthy food there. So we've gone there a couple of times when I want to talk about healthy food. I don't go to the hospital to the dietitian. I go to the C-store because the guy who owns it happens to be a registered nurse. He was very involved in healthcare. He's got a master's degree in health administration. So I just go to the gas station or to the C-store. He doesn't have pumps and do that. So I'm pretty fortunate in that I get to integrate what we do on the show every morning with gas stations or C-store food occasionally. So it works out really well. And it's always fun because, Rose, here in Louisiana, everybody cooks. And there's a quote that's going to be in my next coming up NACS story. Interviewed a guy. He's a VP of Levine Oil, who said, man, if you're going to sell food in Louisiana, it better be really, really good, especially if it's in a gas station. And he's right, because everybody cooks. Even I cook, and pretty good too. And so you find really outstanding food in Louisiana gas stations, but I found amazing food in Texas gas stations. I found Cristal champagne at an Exxon station, $450 a bottle. Did a story on that for NACS. So many of the people I run into end up being, in the NACS column. So I'm really lucky because NACS gives me a good reason to talk to these people, to eat their food. I was telling someone not long ago, I said, it seems like every month I have a love affair with a new C-store, and I kind of get attached to these people when I'm doing the story, and then there's someone new at the end. So, it all kind of, my life all blends together and all kind of meets in America's C-stores.
So Al, the story you're talking about, so I don't know if you know a little backstory. So the story that you're talking about where you interviewed Leighton Levine,
mm-hmm, yeah.
His Chip Levine,
yes,
I think is his father.
It's his dad
was on our board when I started NACS.
Really?
In 2005, yeah. And so he was on the cover of NACS Magazine. I think it was in either January or February 2006, because that was after Hurricane Katrina. And of course, being in Louisiana, they got hit pretty good. So,
wow, Leighton did not tell me
It's come full circle.
It really has. I spoke at NACS in Chicago, and Leighton came up after and said, "Hey, I'm from Louisiana," and he told me about a story. I said, "Well, I would love to do a story because he has chicken on a stick."
And does that make it taste different?
Oh, absolutely. So Leighton said he thought I wrote this, and I'm not sure if I did or not, that he read in a NACS magazine story, which is why you got to love NACS if you're in the C-store business, that food on a stick sells 40% more volume than food not on a stick. So the great story is, and if people out there who have C-stores are listening, a great tip here, if you've got chicken tenders and they're not selling well, put them on a stick. And so he put his on a stick, and he put a pickle between each one, battered it, deep fried it, because we love deep fried food here in Louisiana. And they're selling amazingly well. And the cool thing is, instead of just laying them down, in the box, he stands them up. So it's like little rows of chicken on a stick. Think of corn, but chicken on a stick. Gosh, you got to love that, huh?
What I think is so great about these stories is that you are changing the perception of this industry one story at a time.
That's sweet. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I try. So let me tell you a story. When I was doing the medical projects, I was in a really nice hospital in Texas at one of these boardrooms, huge table. I've actually lived in an apartment smaller than this table. And so as we finished the meeting, I said, "Hey, is there a gas station around here where I could have lunch?" And they all looked at me like I was crazy. Like, "You're not going to eat in a gas station, are you?" I went, "Yeah." I said, "It's kind of a thing that I do." And they pointed me to a gas station in this little town called Noonday, Texas. Population 777. And I walked into this gas station, and there was this huge buffet, way too much food for 777 people. And come to find out, the chef was a classically trained chef, went to the Culinary Institute of America. His dad owned the station. He came back. There was Cornish game hen, amazing food. He got fresh fruit for everything. And so, yes, I hope, Rose, that I'm changing the perception, because what you hear so much is just like I heard at that boardroom was, I would never eat in a gas station. And as you know, was it about half the people who fill up never go inside?
Yeah.
I was doing a story.
Close.
Yeah. And I was doing a story at the Bourbon Street Deli here in Abbeville. I live in Abbeville, Louisiana, 20 miles from the Gulf of Mexico as the crow flies, on a river. How stereotypical Louisiana. I live on a river. And I'm in a house now that's 4 feet off the ground, just in case we flood. But when I was doing a story at the Bourbon Street Deli, shooting the photographs and chatting with someone, and they said, well, I didn't even know this was here. It's adjacent to the ShopRite store, same owner. And we didn't even know, been coming to ShopRite for years, didn't even know there was a restaurant next door. And so, what I try to do is tell people, you got to make the trip from the pumps to the door, because that's where the magic is. And you got to go inside. And Rose and Chrissy, what I love are the people, the attention to detail, and so often the relationship that these people in these small individually owned stores have with their customers. They love their customers.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's sort of a throwback, because we're in a digital age. We communicate on devices. We're not as personal as we used to be. And what's interesting is there was a time, I was a cop for 15 years, and you'd go into a C-store and they wouldn't make eye contact with you. Now, you go into some big box stores, they don't make eye contact with you, but you go into your local C-store and they'll look you in the eye and they'll call you by name, and you have a relationship there. And C-stores all over America, small ones, are really working with their customers. Really working with their staff to encourage your staff to form those relationships. And I love that. You got to love that about C-stores.
Al, there was a story that you did just after Hurricane Ida that really showed the dedication to the community that convenience stores have. It was Le Marche in Maurice, Louisiana.
Le Marche, yeah.
Yeah. And he talked about, the gentleman you interviewed, he talked about how a lot of places were closed. And so he wanted to make sure that he would be open for the community, because he knew that the community would need gas, they would need water, they would need the things that he had. So he was going to stay open in order to provide that. And that was such a touching story, showing how these owners love their community and the connection with the community.
We often talk in the stories we do about the community store. And so many of these small C-stores are community stores. Le Marche is really interesting in that, here, I don't know how it is up there, but your electricity comes from power lines, and there's a pole often next to the house where the electricity comes from the main feed to your house. And those things get knocked down in hurricanes. Well, this little C-store, Le Marche, they sell the power poles. So you can go there. If you got a truck big enough, you can get a power pole. I did a story about Buchikis over in Homa, who after the last hurricane, they had 2 stores completely destroyed, and they were trying to stay open as much as possible to sell gas, because there's a great quote. The guy said, gas is right under air as far as survival down there. And they were running out of gas, and there was chaos at the pumps, and they managed the chaos. And, C-stores are the last places to close in a hurricane and the first ones to open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the way they care about people. And it's like that all down here. I guess this might be called Hurricane Alley, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Al, you've done so many amazing stories over the years. Hundreds. It has to be hundreds.
Yeah,
at this point.
I forget how many places I've been.
Yeah. But you've been able to do some fun stuff. Like you've gone on some road trips going into NACS shows, which for anyone who doesn't know what the NACS show is, I like to say it's the Disneyland for the convenience store industry.
Oh, absolutely.
Wherever we go. And, so you've gotten out of your neck of the woods too, right? Like not everything you do is in Louisiana. Like you've certainly been off the beaten path. What are some of the fun things that you've seen when you've been on the road?
Well, a big shout out to Frank Beard, who travels with me. And Frank and I are sort of the yin and yang of C-store food. Frank, he's fit, he exercises, he eats kale. I, on the other hand, I'm fat. My exercise is getting off the sofa and not making a noise. And, I eat anything that's deep fried and spleen free. And so we take these road trips together. And along the way, we sort of, in a friendly way, force each other to eat the foods that the other one. Like I drank grass juice one day on this trip. And it tastes. If you smelled a freshly mowed lawn,
that's how it tastes.
That's how it tastes. It tasted just like that. And I got Frank to eat boudin, which is a Louisiana thing. And bless his heart, I don't think he realized there was probably a little bit of heart and liver in that thing. But he loved it. It was delicious. So I found some really cool things. I love the Thumb in Scottsdale, Arizona. This is a really upscale gas station, C-store. They have 2 pastry chefs on duty over there, and they create the most beautiful pastries. And they have wonderful ribs and smoked meat. And I love that place. And it's got 2 chandeliers, if I recall right. And you walk into a C-store with a chandelier, you go, okay. This is
where
this is happening. I love it. And again, one of those places, a lot of attention to detail. There's a car wash there, and there's these big overstuffed wingback chairs. I mean, big chairs. And there's a chessboard in there. It's like, that's where you sit to wait for your car, and these very comfortable chairs. So it's so different. The food's great. The environment's great. And I love that, And, I encourage people to go in to C-stores, gas stations when you fill up, because I went to a gas station one time and found Hitler's limo. And, in the middle of nowhere in Arizona. And I walk into this place and, for $1, they have like a little oddities museum. And I walked in, there's all this crazy stuff. And there's this limousine, and it said Hitler's limousine. And wow. So I asked the lady, I said, is this Hitler's limo really? And she said, well, we can't say it isn't. I'm like, okay, that was worth $1. You know?
I remember that story. I remember seeing the pictures. I was like, what in the world? Where did you go?
I know. And they took a mannequin, they put the little mustache on him. And oh my God, that's so clever. And up in Onomowak, Wisconsin, there's a psychic goat that accurately predicted not the past election, but the previous election. And so, the goat predicted the election. So you find that kind of stuff in C-stores. And if you don't go from the pump to the door, you're never going to find Hitler's limo or, a cow cheek.
Yeah, we talked about healthy foods, wheatgrass. We spoke about luxury items like Cristal champagne.
Can you believe? Yes.
Who's looking for that, right? You got to go inside.
Hey,
Right.
I when I go into a gas station to do a story, I never say, I write about gas station food. I always eat the food. If it's good, I talk to the owner or manager. If it's not good, I just quietly leave, because I'm not really a critic. And, this particular store, what I loved about its High Country Market and Gastropub in Round Rock, Texas, he makes his own ketchup, and he imports all the ingredients from Italy. And the ketchup, it costs him about $300 to make a bowl of ketchup. And it's the best ketchup I've ever had. And that's the kind of stuff that makes this job fun. You find that type of thing. There's a great restaurant in, it's north of Fort Worth. It's
Chef Point Cafe.
Chef Point Cafe. Thank you.
I've been there.
Yeah. I mean, they have lobster bisque. He does great soups.
I've had it.
Did you have the bread pudding?
The bread pudding is amazing. I don't even like bread pudding.
I know. And he sells that during Thanksgiving, like $160 for a pan of bread pudding. And it's great bread pudding. And I love that.
To this day, that is some of the best food I've ever had in my life.
It's
easily.
And that's the interesting thing is that some of the best food you'll ever have are gas stations. I think it's a Chevron station in Idaho. You walk in and it's just your typical C-store, but there's a hall. You go down this hall and there's a white linen Italian restaurant where the waiters have white shirts and black pants and the towels over their arms. And, they've got white linen tablecloths and amazing Italian food. And if you want to go to the restroom, you don't go to the restroom in the restaurant, you go to the C-store restroom. So it's really cool. I mean, there's just wonderful places like that with such character. And of course, you meet a lot of characters in these places as well, So Al,
one of the things that, obviously you're big into the food, but over the years, I think you've spoken a bit about, what is it that is the differentiator, right? Like what do you want to be famous for? And I think the examples you give with the gas stations and the food is right in that sweet spot, right? Like, what do you want to be famous for? Is it deep fried Oreos? Is it wheatgrass juice or whatever? I mean, you've seen some pretty neat stuff out there.
I think now you're talking about what do I want to be famous or the gas stations themselves?
What do you want to be famous for?
Man, I would just like to be
answer both.
I am so happy to be doing the Gas Station Gourmet and I can still do it. I love that. I don't need to be famous. I have such a good time doing it. It's just I love road trips. And it's we've had a pandemic. It's time to get back on the road and have some fun. Mm-hmm. And I encourage.
How can you do a road trip without stopping at a convenience store or a gas station?
I don't.
It's not possible.
Not possible. I am really bad at leisure time, and I don't know how to have fun. And so one year, my wife said, "Hey, let's take the kids to Washington D.C." And I went, "Oh God, I've got so much going on." She said, "Look, we're going to drive. And we'll stop in every gas station that you want to stop in." And I ended up with 2 or 3 stories, ended up at a great place in Virginia that had this amazing toy collection. They had these little metal cars hanging from the ceiling. And I did a story for NACS. I think it's called Lehigh Travel Plaza. Mm-hmm. And they had amazing stuff there that, if you just filled up and left, you would have missed an incredible collection of toys, and, I love this. And, I think that I'm so lucky to be able to work for NACS, to contribute the stories and be able to do this. And, these people are so special. These are hardworking entrepreneurs who risk a lot to be in the business. And to me, they're almost living in the old West. They have to make these quick decisions. Is this going to sell? If it doesn't sell, I got to get off the shelf. But, these people, they just try something and it works. And so, I think in a way, I hope I help these people, like people listening to this podcast right now. They're going to come away with some ideas, I hope. Here's an idea. Make sure your store has a sense of fun. If you're listening, write that down or listen to this again. Because, stores with a sense of fun, people want to be there. The employees want to be there. The customers want to be there. Create that sense of fun. And it's not hard to do. And of course, have good food.
So Al, you talked about convenience store owners having to make quick decisions. And you were at NACS Show in October. Mm-hmm. So based on what you saw at the show, what do you think is next?
Next for what? Me or the C-store world or what?
For the C-store world.
Rose, I think there's so many different tracks for C-stores in America now. You have the big chains, and they are gonna do what they do, and they do it well. They're going to come out with big giant drinks or great food and things like that. I think for the small individually owned stores, I think those people have to find a way to compete and compete effectively. And I think what I love about them is what I just talked about, their ability to turn on a dime. And that I find these people, their spin on customer service, it's not something from a manual. It's basically like you might teach your kids to be polite and things like that. It's talking it. And, so many have told me, well, we just try to hire the right people. I'll give you a good example. And I think this is something that we're seeing more and more of in C-stores today. And I think this is what's next for the individually owned stores. And probably the big corporate stores could take a lesson from this. I interviewed a guy from Florida, runs I think 5 C-stores. And I always ask, tell me about how you train your staff. And he said, well, every morning I tell my staff this. People are going to come through that door. They just left a spouse they may not like, who doesn't like them. They're heading to a job they may not like, working for a boss they may not like. And the only smile they're going to get comes from you behind the counter. And I think instilling in employees that passion to form these relationships, to have the eye contact, have the brief relationship when people come in, because they want to come in and want to get out. But that smile, where customers feel valued. Because, Rose, so often, especially in our culture, it's a fast-paced culture. It's a digital culture. Sometimes it's hard to get that value for people. Mm-hmm. But C-stores in America, especially in the small towns, customers feel valued. And I think the next thing is just more and more C-stores embracing that, the staff's got to love the customers, because the customers will love the staff. When they love the staff, they love the store, you've got a customer for life. A deal at another C-store is not going to take this customer, because if Rose is behind the counter, they're going to say, well, wow, I want to see Rose today. Or I didn't see Rose today. I didn't see Chrissy today. Wow, my day wasn't as good. I want to come back and see these people. And that relationship is there, and they keep coming back. You're not going to have that kind of relationship with Amazon, although we all love Amazon. This mic came from Amazon. And so, but we're not going to have that relationship. And I truly believe C-stores, have just pivoted, and now so many big box stores, you don't have the relationship. C-stores have them, and I love it, and I love these people. And you run into them at the NACS show all the time, and I love that.
Well, Al, before we let you go, and this is a great conversation, so we're gonna talk to you again. You're not off the hook.
Oh, please! I love this. I love it.
Road. But we have this new fun thing that we're doing with the podcast.
Music. I love that.
Yeah. All right. So trivia.
Okay.
You ready? All right, Al. And I'm giving this one to you on purpose because you love food.
I do.
So let's see if you can answer.
I hope I get it right.
All right. You ready? What is considered the first fast food chain? And I'm going to give you 4 options. Is it McDonald's, White Castle, Del Taco, or Dunkin' Donuts?
I think it's White Castle.
Ding, 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 ding. You won.
I won
something. I don't know, but you won.
A lot of people think it's McDonald's, but White Castle. I remember White Castle in New Orleans, getting White Castle hamburgers there.
So here's the little history is that White Castle is considered the first fast food restaurant. It opened in 1921 and had an open kitchen that allowed guests to see activity in the kitchen. There you have it.
And you know what? That's a trend now in C-stores. Leighton Levine, that's what they're doing. Their kitchen's open. And Rose, that's what I'm seeing more and more of, where, cooking can be a spectacle. It can be a show. And there's a white linen restaurant I went to for our morning show here and cooked, and their kitchen is basically in the dining room. But, I'm seeing more and more where you can go up to a counter in a C-store, sit there and watch them cook your food. People love that. And what better thing to see a cook with personality, cooking your burger, things like that. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So thank you, Al.
I was going to say, thank you so much for,
I don't want to leave.
I feel like what you said really wrapped it up, and it was the recurring theme that I've heard over and over in a lot of these podcasts that we've done to create connection and engagement. And that's what's going to be moving us forward in the future. So thank you so much, Al.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Chris. It's so good to see you again.
You too. And like I said, we'll have you back. And of course, if you want to hear more from Al, or actually read more from Al, check out NACS Magazine every month. He is our Gas Station Gourmet. He has his own column, and he finds pretty much the coolest places in the world where you can eat great food at a gas station.
Oh, you're so kind. Hey, next time, let's talk about food on a stick.
All right, we'll do a whole podcast on food on a stick.
I'll operate dangerous power tools holding food on a stick.
Oh, boy.
It's going to be great. We'll want to video that.
slightly terrifying. Anyway, so if you know, like I said, check out Gas Station Gourmet, NACSmagazine.com. And thank you for listening to Convenience Matters, to those of you who tuned in. And if you want to hear more, you can check us out at conveniencematters.com. And you can also download and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast player. So thanks again, Al.
Thank you.
And thank you, Rosie.
Thank you, Rose.
Thank you, Christy. Thanks, Al.
Convenience Matters is brought to you by NACS and produced in partnership with Human Factor. For more information, visit convenience.org.